As David said, I'm John Ashley, product trainer here at Lone Wolf Technologies. So glad to be able to connect with you for this very special TransactionDesk training. Just to prove I'm not an AI, I was going to start the video there, but to see I have that option. That's perfectly okay. I was just going to wave real quick and say hi, but that's perfectly okay. So we are going to be talking about creating a transaction and using the Authentisign system as well. Couple things to keep in mind. The session is being recorded. You will see a chat box where you're going to be able to ask questions. So if you have any questions whatsoever, there is a section called Q&A, question and answer, Q&A, question and answer. If you wouldn't mind throwing your questions into the Q&A section, that way I can easily keep track of what questions I have had the chance to be able to answer, what questions I've missed so far. So please add your questions right there. Very happy to be able to answer any questions that come in today. This is why I'm here, to be able to take care of all of you. So let me help you by taking care of you in any way that I can. Excellent. Topics today include creating a transaction, transaction summary info, creating contacts, where you're going to be able to add your documents and forms in the system, setting up an e-sign packet, how to add your signing parties, preparing documents for signing, and how to send out that e-sign packet. So we're going to be going through a lot of great details within the program, really digging in and understanding the different sections of the TransactionDesk system when it comes to creating your transactions. Seeing a couple more that have joined in. Thank you so much, everybody, for being able to connect. Just a reminder, this session is being recorded. And if you have any questions, be sure to add them into that Q&A box, question and answer box. I'm very happy to be able to answer questions. So once you get logged into the program, this is the very first screen that you're going to be able to see. This is our agent dashboard. With the agent dashboard, you will have lots of different widgets that might be available to you. These widgets make it a little bit easier on you when it comes to creating a transaction or to make it so that you can quickly create an e-sign packet. In order to be able to change the dashboard, to customize it to your preference, you're going to hit the lock icon in the top right. Lock icon in the top right. That will make it so that you can see the full dashboard. From there, you can then drag and drop widgets from the top onto your dashboard. A couple of the widgets that I suggest are going to be the create transaction one right here. Create e-sign, that one's a nice one to be able to have. Document upload is nice if you're not trying to upload it directly to a transaction. Scrolling over to the right, I do suggest the recent Authentisign one. Now, these green items are going to be list views. So this is going to be informational list views, while blue items are going to be action items like creating a transaction. So some of the ones I suggest on the green are going to be having your Authentisign packets out there so you can see what the status is. It is nice to have a list view of all your different transactions. And then from there, it just depends on how you use the product. If you're using it to make it so that you can track your tasks, if you're trying to track what is overdue, so if you use the system to with the checklist there, you can track what's overdue. You can look at your documents that you have available. We also have, for those that want to, I'm just throwing this out there just because some of you will have this option. Some of you will upgrade your account to an office type account to be able to review your agents in your office, the documents that they have. So we do have review options as well. Like I said, just throwing that out there for those that are on the call that do have that option. Let's go ahead and lock it up at the top right here to make it so that we can save our dashboard. And this is the way that I prefer to have it. Of course, all of you, you will have different ways that you prefer to be able to see this dashboard. So just unlock it and save it the way that you would like. Sherry is saying, I do not have the toolbar at the top like yours is showing. So my toolbar is on the left-hand side. Just to clarify here, David, we are dealing with the TransactionDesk system. I didn't make a mistake and accidentally jump into TransactionDesk when we should be in zip form instead, right, David?
Yes, you are correct. This is the system.
Okay, I just clarifying there since Sherry is saying that she's in the wrong, not the wrong one, that hers doesn't look exactly like mine. So just wanted to make sure. We do have another transaction system called Zipform. So you know, sometimes clients maybe, you know, I might have looked at the wrong MLS at times, but I was sure this morning I had everything correct. So one thing, maybe Sherry, that yours might look a little different than mine is this person-to-person icon. This just makes it so if you are a broker of an office that is an upgraded account, you can switch to a broker view. So I'm not sure if that's what you're looking for on there, but hopefully you'll be able to help me answer what is different about yours compared to mine. We also have this little TV with the question mark. You're going to notice that throughout the product. This will make it so that you can see a short length training video talking about the section that you're currently in. On the left-hand side is the product toolbar. This will make it so that I can move to the different sections of the product. If you want to know what each section is, we have what we lovingly refer to as the pancakes here at the top left. When I open this up, I can see all the different options that I have available to me. You can also hover to be able to see each item, or you can click. I mean, you're not going to break anything by clicking around, so you can always click to be able to take a look at each item as well. We're going to be heading to the transaction screen. The easiest way to be able to remember where the transaction screen is, this is where all of your transactions are housed. I know that's a terrible joke, but you know what? You're never going to forget where your transactions are, right? Right there in the house icon. So I can see all my different transactions that are available. I can scroll through, I can filter using the filters here at the top. I can even search for a particular transaction. And we're going to go through the process of creating a transaction today. And so we're going to mainly spend most of our time here in the transaction screen. Now, the screen I want to point out real quick is the signing screen. So Authentisign has been provided by your association there, by your MLS there. And so as a member benefit, with the North Star MLS, you do have Authentisign, the e-signature solution, available to you. And so you can actually keep track of all your different e-sign packets from all your transactions within that signings portion. Before I create a transaction, I want to note one more thing, and that's in the person icon in the top right. The person icon in the top right. This will take me to my settings, where I can then check my preferences to make sure that my information is correct. So when you send an Authentisign e-sign packet out, it's going to use the name and the email and the phone number that are in your preferences. You just want to make sure that all that information is correct. You can always double check office information. That does come from the North Star MLS for us, so that's something that will get adjusted when it's adjusted for them. If I go to email signature as well, now quick option here, email signature here. This is not your sincerely with your name and your email address. This is going to be your after email message. So, for example, I know a lot of you agents are very clever, and so you'll have things like a movie quote or a quote from history. For me, I have a really silly movie quote. Don't have a good day, have a great day. You know, name that movie, right? So I just put that in there as my after email message, and you can make yours whatever you would like. And then last, something that a lot of people miss is the branding option. So you can actually add your personal photo and your company logo. That way, your photo and your logo on there, you're going to be able to, when you send an e-sign packet out, have everything branded to you instead of branded to Authentisign. All right, let's head back to our transaction screen now. So now that we have our preferences put together, we have our branding and our user information, let's head to the house icon. By the way, Karen, Brian, I do see your questions. Give me a minute. I will talk about how to be able to adjust dashboards, and I'll talk about splitting documents here in just a second. But let's create a transaction together. So we're going to go to plus add. And why don't we name this something? So maybe 9/14. Well, football season. Got to be Vikings way, right? So I'll just name it something simple like that. Of course, for you, you're going to title it whatever the transaction is. Though, if you don't have the transaction yet, so let's say that you're working with a new buyer, you're doing some showings, and you haven't found the perfect property yet, you could put the title as the buyer's name and then adjust it at a later date. We do suggest putting it as the transaction itself. So we do suggest having this as the transaction itself. But If you need to use it as the buyer's name instead, you sure can do that. Type. If you don't have type, you just need to add some property types onto your settings there. I also have an option some of you may not have called templates. Templates are a wonderful time-saving feature, which you can learn more about. We actually have training webinars that cover how to be able to create templates. And with templates, you're going to be able to quickly add particular forms and documents and checklist items onto your transaction. Michelle, this is being recorded, by the way. And for those that just came in, this session is being recorded. So if you miss part of the session, no worries. This is being recorded by the North Star MLS so that they can provide access a little bit later. And this transaction desk system is provided by North Star MLS. All right, getting back to it. So templates here, when you're going through a list side transaction, which I'm going to be doing a list side transaction today, usually you're going to have a disclosure, maybe a lead-based paint disclosure. You're going to have a listing coverage. You have an exclusive right to represent of some type, right? You may have other forms that are going to be the same forms that you use on every single list side unit. So instead of going through the process of having to add those forms every time, you can create what's called a template. And like I said, we actually have separate training material which I'll show you at the very end that covers how to create templates. So stick with me. I'll show you where you can learn more about templates. The North Star MLS has also included this really great feature called import data. So if you're on the buy side, or if you're representing a rental, you can always bring the information about the listing from the North Star MLS itself into the system. You just select North Star MLS. Mine is different, of course, but you'll select North Star MLS and plug in the MLS number, MLS listing ID there. So you'll need to you can plug those MLS numbers in, and it will actually bring the information about the listing over, just saving you some time filling out the details of the transaction. I'm going to do a listing, though understand the steps that I'm going to go through, even though I'm representing a seller here, the steps I'm going to go through are going to be exactly the same, whether you're on the buy side, on a rental, or on the sell side. All the steps are the same, okay? To that point, this wizard here, use the wizard, a very talented real estate wizard. This wizard is going to take me through a 5-step process of creating a transaction. So leave that checked. This will take me through that 5-step process for creating a transaction, making my life a little bit simpler, putting things into the right order to make sure I fill out everything properly. Okay, so let's click create and use the wizard to help us create this transaction. So step 1, getting the details in. That's always important, right? So I'll go ahead and add in the details. Plug in as many details as you possibly can. The more details that you plug in, the less that you're going to have to worry about filling out on your forms. So you're going to have less that you're going to have to worry about filling out on your forms there. Don't worry, I do see those questions there, so I will get to those questions here in just a minute. But you'll go ahead and fill out every detail that you can. I'm just plugging in a couple myself here. Of course, you're going to go through the process of adding in everything. I added a state to the wrong place. There we go. So zip code, state, city, all the details that you can. Heading to, let me add a price here real quick. My next step is the transaction dates. In this circumstance, I know when the listing date is. Don't know when the application or the offer date will be just yet, unless I already have an offer that's coming in banging on the door. You know, that's happened from time to time in this market. So, but in this circumstance, I don't have an offer yet. So let's go ahead and move on to step 3, which are my contacts. I'm going to be adding my sellers here. So I'll go to plus add, and I can either create a new transaction contact. If this is someone I've worked with in the past, I can add an existing contact. I can even pull from Google. So if you are an Android user, and you iPhone users, don't start throwing apples at me here, but if you are an Android user, you can actually pull contacts directly from your phone. So if your phone saves your contacts to your Google account, you can actually pull them in using that add contact from Google. Nice little feature there. We're going to go ahead and create a new contact, though. And I'm going to do a seller. And we can go ahead and type in Kirk, seller, gonna pull that name out of a hat, right? So I will just go ahead and plug in. Again, you want to plug in as many details as you possibly can. The more details that you plug in, the less that you're going to have to worry about filling out when you are filling out your forms here in a second. Okay. I could add in the address if I'd like, so same as property address. So I could plug in the details that I want and then push save. I'm going to go ahead and add one more seller on here. Julie seller. Might be doing a little bit of a Vikings theme here today. So again, add in as many details as you possibly can. I know I'm leaving a lot of details here blank, but for you, I would definitely plug in as many details as you possibly can. I'm just leaving some of them blank, like the expiration date and the contact dates on there, leaving those blank for the sake of time today. But in your circumstance, go ahead and make sure to fill out as much as you possibly can. One last thing here, I'm going to add an existing contact. So this is someone that I've worked with in the past, and I'm just going to grab a lawyer. Let's see here. Let's just, in this circumstance, let's pretend I have a seller lawyer I'm working with. You can see I have lots of different contacts that I've worked with. I am just going to grab a random one that I've used in the past, this Anthony Rada there. So I'll just push add and get them added in. There we go. So I have some different contacts that are now available. Let's move on to step 4, which are my forms. Forms are a little bit different. We have forms and we have documents. And you can see that on the right-hand side too. Forms and documents. Step 5 will be documents. You may wonder, what's the difference between a form and a document? A form is going to come from your actual MLS itself. So the North Star MLS has actually provided us a library of available forms for us to be able to pull into your system. Now, today, I'm not part of the North Star MLS, so I'm just going to be using a couple educational examples. For you, though, you are going to have a folder that will say North Star MLS. Like I said, for me, I'm using a couple educational examples. For you, though, you will actually have forms from the North Star MLS that you're going to be able to use. I'm also going to let's do a seller's disclosure. You can also use the search box to be able to find particular forms if you'd like to as well. So if I'm looking for seller's disclosure, I can start typing it in. It will give me some different options, which I can then choose and push add. So I've got a couple educational examples there. Let's move on to step 5. Step 5 are my documents. Now with forms, they come from the North Star MLS. A document, on the other hand, is going to be uploaded by me. I'm going to be pulling this in from my computer. You could pull it in if you already have it in the doc box. So we have a document box over on the left-hand side. If it's already there, you can pull it from there. You can upload it if you have it on Google Drive or OneDrive or Dropbox. You could also email upload it. So this email upload, every single transaction you create will have its own special email address. And if you send an attached document to this email address, it will automatically attach onto the transaction. So every transaction will have that option, that email upload option. I'm going to pull from my computer. Again, I just have an educational example. I'm going to grab this exclusive right to represent. It's not going to be exactly like the form that you use, of course, within the North Star MLS, but we're just using this as an educational example. Okay. We'll go ahead and push done. And now I am taken to my transaction dashboard. One question that was asked earlier is about how to be able to adjust your dashboard. Adjusting your transaction dashboard is exactly the same as adjusting your agent dashboard, which what you'll do is you're going to push the lock icon and unlock it. Same with the agent dashboard. You'll see a lock at the top right. And then you can drag widgets onto your dashboard, or you can remove widgets, or you can increase or decrease the size with that green triangle there. And then when you're ready, you can lock this back up. Okay. So we have different widgets available. Again, I have some that I prefer. For you, it's going to be based upon what works best with you. I like to have the e-sign on here, the document upload options here. I like to have my checklists and tasks because I use checklists and tasks on there. Even having the contacts as well is quite nice. At the top of the page, I can add a photo. I can adjust my title. So this is not the address of the property, this is the title of the property. So I can adjust my title anytime that I want. Let's add a photo. I have found these are real rental properties minus Buckingham Palace. That's not a real rental property. I don't think England is doing that bad, but I found quite a few different real rental properties and for sale properties just for the fun of it. Let's just grab this boat in the desert. Let's do a funny one. There was a rental property. All right, and then you can also, with this envelope, see your email upload option. So if you ever do want to upload via email, that email upload option can be found with the envelope at the top right. Under these three little dots, you can delete a transaction, you can duplicate it. You can also create a template based upon what you've created with the transaction here. On my right-hand side, this is my toolbar for this transaction by itself. So the left-hand side, toolbar for the entire program. The right-hand side is just the toolbar for the transaction. We're in the dashboard right now. I could go through the 5-step process of the wizard again if I wanted to. Let's move on to the details section. Now, there were some details that I missed. Somebody mentioned earlier, I didn't add the expiration date on there. So if I scroll down, I do have an expiration date option that I could choose a particular option here. Any options that you adjust, any details that you add in, be sure to hit the check mark at the top of the page. That will save whatever you've adjusted. So if you make any adjustments, be sure to hit the check mark in order to be able to adjust it. We have our contact section. So this is where all my contacts are that I've created. I have my form section where I can add more forms if I need to. So as I need more forms, I can always add them in. Signings is where I can keep track of the different signings I've created for this transaction. Documents, this is where I can continue to upload documents. By the way, this is also the section where when I create an Authentisign e-sign packet, when everybody's completed and signed their part, I will get the completed and signed documents in this particular section, in the document section, okay? So if I go through Authentisign for my signature, once it's completed, those completed documents will end up right here in their own folder in the document section. Checklist and task both deal with being able to track what you're doing within the transaction. And this is a full transaction management system. It's not just a forms library. It's not just an e-sign solution. So use it to its fullest capability. You can receive notifications reminding you to do different tasks on particular properties. You can track what paperwork that you've completed or what paperwork you've missed. Even something as simple as making sure to add a lockbox onto a property or make sure and add a sign to a property. You can easily come in and use the checklist and task sections to be able to keep track of those items. Call logs, if you want to keep track of the different calls you've had with a seller or buyer or tenant. Service orders, if you needed to hire, a garage person to come in and fix the garage door, hire a plumber, you can keep track of those service orders here. History, well, I have a pretty new baby here, 11 weeks old. And so sometimes remembering what I was working on yesterday can be a bit of a tall order. So that history can help me keep track of everything I've done on this transaction. We even have home warranty and title companies that we connect with. So if you're ever looking to connect with home warranty or title, you can go and use those options there. And then the marketplace. The marketplace allows you to connect with quite a few different services. These are not provided as a part of TransactionDesk. What you're doing is that you're just linking accounts that you already have with those different services, like Boost Marketing or eCommission, Rent Spree Updater. So we have different companies and different products that we connect with, where we can send information over to them, the address details and contact details over to them, if you would like to link those accounts. All right. I just quickly went through that toolbar, I know, just because I want to get to the meat of this next section here. I want to really get to the big next section, the section that I get a lot of questions about, and that is Authentisign. So we created our transaction. And if you're keeping track of what I've done so far, we created the transaction. We made sure and fill out every detail that we can. We added every contact that we needed to add. And then we added the forms and the documents that we need to get signed. Okay, so that's what we've done so far. We've created and added the details. We've added the contacts that are needed. We've added in our forms and our documents. Next, we are going to edit these forms to make sure that the information that is in the forms is correct. So I'm going to click on a form, which will take me to my editing feature. With this, I can then start adjusting the information within the transaction. All these blue sections are going to be sections that I am able to fill out. So every time you see a blue section, that will tell me it's a section that I am able to fill out myself. I do understand with most disclosures that it will be the seller filling it out. But again, this is an educational example, okay? So just stick with me. The blue sections, I'll be able to fill those blue sections out. Scrolling down, I can also make adjustments onto the names if I need to. Any blue section you see is adjustable, and you can edit it with whatever you need to be able to add in, okay? At the top of the page, you have some additional options. First, if your signer, your seller, your buyer, whomever, if they prefer to sign this by hand, they want to put ink to paper. They don't want to sign it electronically. Totally understood. What we're going to do in that circumstance is we're going to head here to File and then Print. So after you've gone through the process there of adding in everything you can, go ahead and head to File and then Print. You can also save this as a PDF if you'd like. You can also add a watermark. So let's say that I just want to send this to them as a draft so they can take a look at it ahead of time. I can add the watermark and then come back to File and remove that watermark next time around, okay? So we have lots of different options. You could even send it over via email. And what's really great about this is that you can actually make it so that they can edit the forms as well. So if you're in a circumstance like this where there's a lot of blue sections that need to be filled out and you don't know the answers to all of it, you can actually use that File email option and choose which ones you want to send and allow your buyer, seller, whomever to be able to fill out that form. So another great option that we have within the system. After I filled out the form, if I am using the electronic system, Authentisign, to get this signed, if this is the only form I'm using, I could head up to the pin icon to make it so that I can start getting this signed. But if this is not the only form, I'll push Save and Exit, and I'll move on to the next form. And then the next form after that, and I'll do the same process of editing the form, making sure and adding in all the information that is necessary on there. And then if I want to print it, I can go to File, Print. If I want to change the font, I can adjust the font. One additional option I haven't talked about yet, you can save a clause library. So on particular sections, there are going to be clauses where the legal terms need to be added in within that form, whether it's a disclosure or whatever. You can actually save your own library of clauses, which you can find on the left-hand side. So you'll see a section called Clauses. It's not talking about Christmas there. That will give you the ability to be able to add your own library of available clauses. All right, we'll go ahead and push Save and Exit here. So those are your forms, and you're going to go through the process of doing this with every single form available. Let's now move on to documents. With documents, if you are using Authentisign, the e-sign packet, you don't need to do anything with your documents here when it comes to marking them up. But if you are printing this out for the client, you can click on it and use the markup tool, this little paint palette at the top, to be able to add in text or draw free draw, like being able to put an X here or something like that. You can highlight particular sections as well. Be careful using the redact and highlight feature, though. I would double check with the North Star MLS before using any of those available features, just to make sure that it is okay to use those on particular forms and documents, okay? But with the markup tool, you can mark this up and then be able to click on it to be able to get it printed, okay? So if this is a circumstance where they are hand signing it, I do suggest using the markup tool to add the text into the document. I don't know about you. I did not take a calligraphy class growing up. It wasn't something I had available to me. So what you can do is that you can just come in and be able to add in the text on all the different sections of the document. We had a question earlier for Brian about how to remove or split docs that have been combined. And that's where we have the slicer tool, the document slicer tool. So what you'll do in that circumstance, if this was a multi-page, you'll choose the pages that you want, push remove pages, and then save this as a new document. So push save as and save as a brand new document. Then when you leave, just make sure and don't save it. Don't save the original. You're just going to do that each time. You're going to go to the document slicer tool, select the pages you want to remove, save as a brand new document. And then when you push close, it's going to ask you to save, say no. That way you can keep the original document with all the pages in order, okay? So you'll do that each time to make it so that you can split up that document with however you would prefer, okay? You can also head to these little dots right here to be able to find the slice and markup tool as well. You can upload revisions to this if you want. So we do have several options here as well. So that hopefully answered Brian's question there. Thank you for getting that question in early about being able to slice up your documents. Now, like I said, if you are using Authentisign, you do not need to use the markup tool for documents. Instead, you can go ahead and create your e-sign packet with your forms and documents. So before we do that, recapping real quick, we added in the desired details. We added in our contacts already. We added our forms, and then we edited our forms with all the information that's necessary in our forms. And then we added our desired documents as well. Now we're going to head here to signings and go to plus add, and we're going to create our e-sign packet. I'm just going to call this a pre-list packet and push save. Excellent. Step 1, add in your desired participants. So I'm just going to add them from the transaction. That's why we added them to the transaction, because this makes this a really simple step. I just choose who I want and push select. I can also on here choose if they are remote signer, a reviewer, or if they should be carbon copied. Reviewer just means someone needs to be able to approve or deny the entire packet as a whole. Remote signer means that they need to perform an action of some kind. And then CC means that they should be carbon copied on there. So just after everybody has signed, after everybody's got their part done, they will get a copy of it at the very end. So for my lawyer here, I'm just going to set them up as a reviewer and push select. Now, it'll automatically put it in a particular order, and at this point, everyone would receive it at the same time. If I want it to be in a particular order for receiving it, though, we have this option to set the signing order, set signing order. And I would just then drag and drop the order based upon your preference. One thing I do suggest adding yourself last. So if you're the agent, I would suggest adding yourself last. It just gives you the ability to double check that everything was inputted correctly. You know, nothing worse than you get into a disclosure and they have an electric oven and they put a gas oven or a fire, a fire stove or something like that, wood burning stove or something like that. So it gives you the ability to double check that what they completed was correct. Okay. So we could, if there was someone that you didn't add to the transaction that you forgot, you can always add new. You can add from contacts as well. There are also additional options. When you click on a signer, you do have some additional options where you can come in and be able to make adjustments. You can update the contact on there and push save as well. Excellent. So we have our signers. Now let's add our documents and forms. So I'll head here to docs, and I can either add it right here or I can add it right in the middle, either way. And I'll just push add on everything I want to get added. If I forgot a document, I can go to this upload import option. If you forgot a form, I would suggest backing out of the Authentisign packet, add the form to the transaction, go through the editing option, and then come back to the packet and add it in. I would not add it in here just because all those blue sections that were there before, they're gone. So it's going to be a lot harder to fill this out than it was before. After you've added your documents and forms, and after you added in your signers, on your forms, it will automatically add all the signature portions and the initials. If there were checkmark boxes or anything here, it would automatically add that in. So it will automatically add it in on your forms. Your documents, on the other hand, unfortunately, it will not automatically add that in, which we'll be using tools to help us add that in next. So let's go ahead and head to tools, where I can now add in signer actions, signer fields, and markup. Let's start with markup. Markup allowing you to be able to mark up this document. So like I need a text box here with my office name. And then I can drag and drop where it needs to go. I can click on it for some additional options as well, like the font size, the color. We also have this great option called transparent background. So right now, you can't see anything that's under that text. But if I turn on transparent background, I can see everything under that text. By the way, if you made a mistake on a form, you can use that markup box as kind of a whiteout feature and then write in the proper text there. So just a suggestion, if you did make a mistake on a form, you can use that markup box as kind of a whiteout feature to make it so that you can white out the incorrect text and put in the proper text. We also have signer fields, which will automatically add the name, email, the date, and the time when that particular person comes in to sign. So if I head here to Kirk Seller, I can add in those signer fields, which will automatically populate when Kirk jumps in to begin signing. Before I do that, though, I want to point out this really neat feature that we have called All Signers. With All Signers, when I go to signer fields, it'll actually add everybody on there at the same time instead of adding them in one at a time. So if I wanted to add in all the different emails for everybody, all the different names and everything for everybody at the same time, I can use that All Signers feature. And then I can go ahead and click on this and push delete. And then auto date. And drag and drop that in. So I can do that with my signer fields. I can also do that with signatures. So if I want to add everybody's signature in at the same time, I can easily do that and then drag and drop where they need to go. And if there is a particular person I don't want to include, I can just click on them and push delete. We also have another great tool called Myself, and hopefully nobody on the call thinks I'm calling myself a tool today. So with this, I can actually pre-sign my documents and forms before sending it out. So for this one, I can go ahead and just add my name. And now my name is on here. I don't need to worry about adding it in later. And when I push sign here, it'll ask me to accept the terms and conditions. And I can then create a signature. I can either use a style. I can draw a signature, and I'm just going to pretend I'm drawing this with a crayon here. I can also upload a signature if I'd like. So I'll just push set and drag and drop where it needs to go. Heading back to my individual signers, we do have we have a bunch of different signer actions that are available. One that does confuse quite a few people is the difference between a radio choice and a checkmark box. I get questions all the time about that. So for example, let's say that I had a question like this. Do you occupy the property? The answer in that circumstance is either going to be yes or no. There's no metaphysical, the home is where the heart is. I keep a toothbrush there just in case. The answer is either yes or no. So in that circumstance, what I'm going to do is I am going to use what's called a radio choice. Radio choices allow me to be able to add in and make it so that they can only pick one out of those two options. So I can only use one out of those two options on there. Okay. And so in this circumstance, they can't pick something else entirely. They have to pick either yes or no. They don't have any other options. You could also add additional options, but essentially they have to pick one out of however many options that you choose. They have to pick one out of however many options they choose there, okay? All right. Moving on. Let's go ahead and talk about checkboxes here just for a second. Just seeing if there's any questions about radio choice option. Don't worry, Joe, I do see your question. Get to you in just a second. Let's say that you had a different question, though, something to the effect of, kitchen appliances, right? And it had, stove, microwave, air fryer, etc., right? In that circumstance, I would add a checkbox because this person could choose one of these options. They could choose all three of these options. They could choose none of these options. They may have nothing in their kitchen, okay? And so you can add that in, and they could pick one, they could pick multiple, they could pick none. Now, one thing, you'll notice there's a red square and a red star. That means it's required for them to check it. So if it's a circumstance like this, I would turn the requirement off for each checkbox. And if you find yourself doing that quite often, turning off the requirement or making an adjustment all the time, be sure to save it as a default. When you do that, that makes it so that the next time you add a checkbox, it won't automatically mark as required in that circumstance, okay? That's the difference between a checkbox and a radio choice option. Radio choice, they have to pick one out of multiple choice. Checkbox gives you the option. Do they want to pick one? Do they want to pick three? Do they need to pick at all? So it gives you those additional options. We also have text lines. So in sections where someone is needing to add in text, for example, I need to add a date here that needs to be written out as September 14, 2023, instead of doing the 09/14/23 that I have everywhere else. So you can come in and be able to add this in as a text line so that they can add whatever text is necessary. So Rob is asking a question about how to set up an accept versus decline with a signature inserted if they choose accept, as with an arbitration disclosure. So what I would do is in that circumstance, you can create a drop-down menu of accept and decline. You can create it with, let me think here. Yeah, so you can see it's accept decline there and that it's required. And then what I would probably do in that circumstance, let me think just for a second, because that's a good question. We do have the initial choice, but you're looking for a signature choice in that circumstance. So I would turn off the requirement for the signature. Would turn off the requirement for the signature in that circumstance. And then I'm guessing that it will have instructions telling you to sign if you push accept. But if they do, so I would set the signature as not required, like I said, and then thinking here, you could add tooltip text that says sign if accepting, and then have accept line. And what that will do is that will make it so that it'll have a tooltip for your signer that will tell them when they choose accept on there, it'll tell them they need to sign if they chose accept. Okay. And so in that circumstance, you would again turn the requirement off, because if you leave it required, then they're going to have to sign whether they push accept or decline in that circumstance. So what you'll do is instead you will push you'll turn on the drop down where they have to push either accept or decline, and then it'll have the tooltip text that says that they need to sign if accepting. I think that might be the closest thing for you, Rob, to what you're looking for. And yes, Gretchen, I do understand that the signature block is left blank. So I just don't know. Like I said, I don't know what your forms look like exactly. I apologize. I'm not part of the North Star MLS. So if you do have an option to push accept or decline, that would be a good option there. My apologies. I'm just trying to think of what would be the best circumstance. Gretchen or Rob, does it have you choose accept or decline, or is it a circumstance where it's only got the signature and that's it? No, not well, so Gretchen said it defaults to accept or decline. I understand that. Do you choose accept or decline in a particular section and then you have to sign? Okay, so it's only you sign if you accept it. Okay. Let me think here. That's a good point.
And I apologize too. I'm not familiar with the forms because all the contracts are created by the state association. So we have very few North Star MLS specific forms. It's just those contracts that are created statewide. We don't have control over those or governance on them. So unfortunately, I don't know the answer to that either.
So I probably would just turn off the requirement for the signature. And then as a special note to your client, by the way, you don't even have to add the signature. If you've already discussed with your client that they're going to decline it, so they're not going to put an accept signature on there, you don't have to have the signature. You can just delete the signature, or you can just not include it if you've already spoken with your client about that. And if there's questions about the legality of it, they can deny the entire packet. So they don't have to sign it. So if it's a circumstance where they change their mind, they want to accept it instead of decline it, they can deny the whole packet. And so what I would do is I would just only add the signature section if they are accepting. If they are not accepting, then go ahead and just remove the signature section completely. They'll go ahead and delete it if it's already there, or just don't even add it in. So that would probably be your best bet. And like I said, if they change their mind, you can either make it so that it's not required, like I did here, if they are deciding to decline instead of accept. But if it's the other way around, where they are, where you just don't add it in because you know that they're declining, they can always just deny the entire packet. So I think that would be your best bet there. So sorry, I had to think that through. Gretchen, Rob, I was just, that's a good example. Thank you so much for providing that. It's a little different example than what I've seen before. But I would just not add the signature if they're going to decline it. Okay, Rob says that he said that they can just leave it blank, so not required as the answer. True. The only issue that you may run into, Rob, is that clients will just sign it without thinking. So that's the only reason why I say you can just not include it in that circumstance, and they can just choose to deny the entire packet if they do want to sign it, if they change their mind on that. All right, perfect. Before I move on, question that came in from Joe real quick was about this form was prepared. This here, not everybody will have this option automatically appear, but yes, that does automatically appear for some of you, and it's just telling you who it was prepared by with my information on it, so that they'll know with the forms here who it was prepared by. So good question there, Joe. You may not see that on yours, depending on what options are available for the state board forms that are sent in, but sometimes you may see that come in. Okay, excellent. All right, let's talk about just really quickly layouts. We'll just talk just a second about this because we're getting close to the end of our time. So it took me a minute to put everything together for this document, right? I had to scroll through and add in and drag all the tools over. If this was a document that I was going to use all the time, what I would do is I would create what's called a layout. When you create a layout, you can name it, and then the next time that you use this document, just choose to apply the layout, and you just grab the layout that you want to apply there. And it will then automatically add in all the signature portions, all of the text lines and the initials and all that. It will add that in automatically. So if you're putting together an arbitration disclosure like Rob was doing there, then you can actually save it. You can maybe put one in there as accepted and one as denied, or just put it in there as optional for every time. If for most of you on this call, though, the example that you're probably going to be using this for is for a offer that comes into you. So when you have an offer that comes in, it doesn't automatically have all of the signature portions and everything, especially since it's going to be it's actually going to be, the buyer's agent's going to be sending this over to you. And so it's not going to have everything in there. So what you're going to do is you are going to, instead of having to sit there and do this every single time, do it the first time and then save the layout. And then after you save the layout, you'll then be able to use that layout for any time that you have a new offer come in. So just wanted to throw that option out there. Go ahead and hit next. You can customize the invite if you want it to have a special message. You're then going to go ahead and hit send. After getting this sent out, you're going to be able to see it right here. You can show the participants. You can click on it to be able to adjust email addresses if you'd like. And then you can even resend to unsigned participants or add a CC if you'd like to as well. All right, and that is the full e-sign on there. I'm getting here real close to the end of my time, so I do want to answer one question that came in earlier about templates. So they asked when you're creating your own templates, which you are creating your own in that circumstance, do you need to make adjustments when the forms change? The answer is yes. So unfortunately, the system isn't going to know that, Form B is now Form A. Unfortunately, we don't have the capability to do that. So you will need to replace it in the template as forms are replaced. It's a good question that came in. And yeah, Sherry, you brought up a good point. So this is being recorded. So thank you so much for your feedback on there. This is being recorded. Everyone will get a copy of this. We also have additional training material. So at the top right, there's a question mark with a phone number and an email address that you can connect with. A phone number and email address that you can connect with. And with that phone number and email address, you're going to be able to call them 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, if you have any questions whatsoever. Okay? Any questions whatsoever, you are going to be able to give them a call or send them an email. We do also have online training classes that are available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So would love for you to be able to participate in those webinars. We have guides that are written out that you can go through as well, written out guides. And we have short-length help videos. These are just a couple minutes long a piece, these short-length help videos. Beyond that, just seeing if there are any other questions. Connect with us via social media if you want to stay ahead of whatever we're working on currently, whatever upgrades we're going to be going through. And don't forget about our customer support. Justin, Mary, thank you so much. I do appreciate you being so kind and saying thank you. I do appreciate that. Any other questions or anything else? We have just a couple minutes left here, so I just want to see if there are any other questions. I do appreciate everybody connecting. Don't forget about those additional webinars. Okay, those additional webinars and those little help videos here. We do cover templates. We cover creating checklists. We cover Authentisign layouts. So if you want to dig in more into the program, check out our additional webinars. All of them are free. All of them are recorded. And so you can connect. And even if you can't make it onto a class, go ahead and sign up so that you can go ahead and sign up. That way you can get a recording of it at a later date. All right.
Thank you for drawing attention to those resources, John.
Excellent. Well, thank you, David, so much for having me on. I really appreciated taking the time. The North Star MLS here, you guys, it was wonderful connecting with all the different individuals on this call today. And even giving me some questions. I really had to think about there for a second. I always appreciate some new questions and new ways to be able to use the program. Thank you, David, for setting this up.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it.